What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Conversations with a Coronavirus Survivor. I'm your host, Marielle, and you are watching Hope TV. We are so grateful for you and for you tuning in. If you could go ahead and do me a favor and go ahead and share this on whatever platform that you are watching from, or tag somebody or text somebody and let them know that the show is on. We're going to be bringing you some really good information. We love that we can say survivor because, as many of us know, coronavirus has been a very deadly virus to a lot of Americans. We've lost over 100,000 Americans to coronavirus, and it has especially been detrimental to the African American community. So we love being able to say the word survivor when we bring guests onto the show. So listen, we want you to be as educated and as informed as possible. And so a part of that is bringing you the stories of those who have lived it, they've contracted the virus, or maybe they've had loved ones that have contracted the virus, or maybe they are a first responder and they're in the medical community and they're trying to combat this thing. And so today I'm really excited that I get the opportunity to sit and hear the story of Quintalyn Parker as she shares her journey of what it's been like dealing with COVID-19. So if you could help me welcome Quintalyn Parker to the show. Hi, Quintalyn. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good. Well, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to just sit and have a conversation and just to be transparent with our audience today. And so let's dive right into it. Let's start from the beginning. So just kind of start from what was happening in your life. A lot of guests have said, they were just going about their normal lives, working or maybe going on vacation or something to that degree. When you started noticing that something was wrong. So kind of walk us through the journey of that.
Okay, it's the same for me. I was going through my everyday life. I'm actually an essential worker. I work in healthcare as a laboratory technologist. And, unfortunately, I still had to go to work during the pandemic. But, outside of work, I still tried to social distance and, wash my hands and practice good hygiene every day like I normally do. And, of course, I try not to go anywhere else but work. But unfortunately, everybody doesn't follow the rules. Everybody was not quarantining, everybody was not social distancing. So, I had maybe one coworker, maybe more than one, that maybe traveled during the quarantine. And when they got back home and when they came back to work, they were talking about they weren't feeling well and nobody really knew what was going on. Of course, everybody was concerned, like, okay, can it be coronavirus? Can I get it? But nobody wanted to jump to that conclusion because you don't want to put it on anybody, especially if you know how serious it is. So, I was actually around somebody who was feeling ill. As far as I know, the only symptom she was experiencing was a cough. So I can't really say, okay, yeah, she had a fever, she had the shortness of breath. I can't say that, but she did have a cough. And so, probably like 1 or 2 days after I was in contact with her, I started feeling ill myself. Um, the first thing that I noticed was a sore throat, but I didn't think anything about it because I have allergies. So this was during a time where the pollen count was very high. And so I was just thinking, okay, maybe some pollen got in my throat, just my allergies acting up. So I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until I went to work on Friday, March 27th, that I was like, okay, something's wrong. I made sure I checked my temperature before going to work just to make sure I wasn't running a fever. Otherwise, I would have called out. But I wasn't running a fever that morning, so I went ahead and went to work, and I just took something for my throat. It wasn't until I started working during that day where I started to feel very fatigued, very lethargic, and it was just so difficult to get through the workday because I actually have to work 10-hour shifts. So it was very difficult to get through the workday that day. And I immediately knew something was wrong. And so I actually live with 4 other people. So I made sure I text them. I was like, look, I'm not feeling well. I'm on the way home. I'm going to go ahead and isolate myself immediately because I didn't want to put anybody else at risk. So I actually ended up getting home. I checked my temperature again, and I believe it was like 100.4. Then I was like, okay, something's up. I didn't
Yeah.
want to jump to coronavirus right then and there. I actually thought it might have been the flu. But the very next day, that Saturday, March 28th, I was running another very high fever. It was actually 100.4. And that's
Mm.
what ultimately made me go to my physician. And surprisingly, I was able to get a test that same day. During that time, everybody was talking about how difficult it was to get testing. So I wasn't even expecting to get a test. But once they test me for the flu and strep throat, those both came back negative. So immediately, my doctor was like, I'm going to test you for COVID-19. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So he ended up testing me, and of course, I couldn't get rapid results because it was from a physician's office and not the hospital. So I
Mhm.
actually had to wait a week and a half before I got my results back. And unfortunately, that week and a half later, they called me and told me I was positive.
Wow. So walk me through, once you found out that you were positive, did the symptoms get worse? Did you have to adjust even how you were isolating yourself because you do live with other people? Kind of walk us through
Hmm.
that. So once you got those test results back and it was like, this is it. What shifted, what changed immediately after?
So, like I said, because I kind of felt like that might have been it, I just went ahead and isolated myself. Like I went to the CDC website. I was like, what do I need to do? Um, and I just followed those protocols. I stayed in the bedroom. You know, whenever it was time to eat dinner, somebody would bring the food to my door so they wouldn't have direct contact with me. And this took place like from the moment I started feeling sick all the way up until, I got my test results back. And of course, after I got my test results back, I just continued to do the same thing.
Gotcha. So because you are an essential worker, how did it affect that world? Because you're on the first line basically. So how, you're a first responder, you're an essential worker, you work in the medical
Hmm.
field. So how did it affect that? Like as soon as you were feeling sick, did you have to tell your supervisor, or did you just wait until you got the official I'm positive? Like how did that go?
Um, I called out of work immediately. Like I stayed at work that Friday, but I did not go back after that. I didn't tell anyone because, like I said, initially I thought it was allergies. Plus, I wasn't running a fever, at least that I knew of. I really didn't know that I was having other symptoms like a fever until I got home from work. So, I feel kind of bad because I feel like I should have said something as soon as I started feeling strange because I didn't want to put anybody else at risk. Like that was my main concern is like not getting anybody else sick. So I probably should have said something, but I will say that that day at work, I made sure that if I had to cough, I covered my mouth. I didn't allow anybody to get too close to me. Like if somebody got too close, I would back up. So as far as I know, nobody else got sick at my workplace.
That's wonderful. So we've heard that people who have gone through coronavirus, or when they contract the virus, that it takes a toll on you physically, but it can also
Hmm.
take a toll on you emotionally and mentally because you are having to be isolated from your loved ones. So kind of walk us
Exactly.
through that. Like, were you okay? Because it sounds like you were still in the house with
Hmm.
your family. It was just that you had to stay
Hmm.
alone by yourself. Like how how
Right.
how did it affect you mentally and emotionally?
It was really hard because I'm a very affectionate person. I like to hug my family members. I like to hug my fiance. I like to, kiss him. And it was really hard not to be able to show affection. And my family is also big on like eating meals together. So anytime we would eat, we would always go to the kitchen table and eat together. And so it was really hard, not being able to eat at the table with them. Like I had to eat alone in my bedroom. So it did, take a toll on me mentally because, I missed that time with them, that quality time with them. And it's like, a lot of the times, like when you get used to something, you take it for granted. And it's not until you lose it that you're like, man, like I really cherish that time. So it was
Yeah.
really hard for me. And actually, it's still going on because I'm still testing positive as of today.
Wow.
So I'm able to go around my family more because, as far as what I read, my understanding is I'm not as infectious, but nobody knows whether or not I'm completely like uninfectious. So I'm still taking precautions as far as wearing a mask at all times.
Mhm.
Anytime I'm around anybody, I always have my mask on. But I do go to the kitchen now to eat with everybody. But I kind of have like my little area off to the corner where I'm like 6 feet away from
Yeah.
everybody. So, I'm thankful to have that quality time again. But of course,
Mhm.
I still miss being able to hug my family, hug my fiance, kiss him, all that stuff. I miss that. And
Yeah.
as far as physically, um, I'm only 30 years old. I'm not in top shape, but I am very active because of work. I have to do a lot of walking. I have to do a lot of standing. I don't have any pre-existing conditions, so it's like for my body to feel so fatigued, so beat down, and just not feeling like myself. It's very hard. I just feel like somebody my age shouldn't be feeling like this. So it's
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
Yeah. So let's talk about from your family's perspective.
Mhm.
When you came home, you weren't feeling well, you immediately told them, "Hey, I'm going to self quarantine." How do you feel like
Right.
that's affected them? Did they immediately feel like, "Oh my goodness, we need to go get tested too," or we're just going to
Mhm.
take precautions and just make sure everything's wiped down and things like that? So, what adjustments did they have to make when you came home?
They immediately just felt like they needed to be careful around me. Um, they didn't get tested yet. Right now everybody's kind of at home because of the pandemic. Nobody has gone back to work yet, so they were saying that they're going to get a test before going back to work, of course. And but like they would just wipe stuff down. We had a whole bunch of Lysol, a whole bunch of Clorox wipes. Like anytime I would go anywhere, they would wipe it down. And they would also have their mask on too when they were around me or touching anything that I touched, they would have their mask on. Um, and just social distancing. It's like, it's kind of hard to distance yourself when you live under the same roof with somebody. But, I was able to have my own space and keep my own space to where, I wasn't near anybody. It wasn't impossible for me to distance myself. So, they still kept in contact with me, of course. They didn't just leave me hanging, but they just made sure to be extra careful.
Which I'm sure is difficult because I've been thinking about it for people who they've contracted the virus and it is bad, but they haven't had to go necessarily to the hospital, but they're staying home. It's
Right.
still hard to take care of yourself. You kind of need
Mm-hmm.
somebody to
Exactly.
at least see about you because you're so exhausted. How do you try to take care of yourself? So that's been one of the
Exactly.
things that I really wanted to talk to somebody who is staying with family members, how that support system has been essential to them trying to get
Mm-hmm.
better. Because if you were by yourself trying to feed yourself and just trying to take care of yourself, fixing food and all of that, that becomes
Mm-hmm.
impossible if you are too exhausted sometimes to even get out of the
Exactly.
bed. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you mentioned that you were engaged,
Mm-hmm.
and so I before we started, you told me that there was something major that was supposed to happen, but because of all
Mm-hmm.
of this, it kind of got derailed. So kind of talk to me about the other things that contracting COVID-19 affected in your life.
I would say not only contracting it, but just the pandemic itself just kind of turned everything upside down. I was actually supposed to get married on Saturday, June 13th, which is this upcoming Saturday. And unfortunately, we had to postpone that wedding. We decided to postpone it until next year because we wanted to make sure, the pandemic was under control. Initially we talked about postponing it to the fall, but once the CDC came out with a report saying that, the virus may be worse in the fall because of the flu, we was like, what, forget it. We're just going to postpone it till next year. Hopefully things will be better. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine, some type of treatment for it, so that even if it is still going on, it won't be as deadly and dangerous to people. So we initially postponed the wedding for the safety and health of our guests. At that time, it had nothing to do with me having COVID because I wasn't anticipating that I would have it this long. At the
Right.
time, I did have it. I did know that I was positive, but I anticipated that by now I wouldn't have it anymore. So it's like, even if we did decide to move forward with the wedding, because obviously, Georgia has opened up, so people are still having weddings. Like, I actually follow my wedding venue on Instagram, and I've seen them post footage from weddings like over the last few weeks. So we could have moved forward with our wedding, as long as we told everybody to social distance and, wear a mask. But I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it because it would have just been too much on me, still trying to recover from it, and just still testing positive. I wouldn't feel comfortable being around hundreds of people anyway. So we made
Absolutely.
the right decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, and especially that added factor of them saying that African Americans are our community is being hit the hardest with,
Hmm.
coronavirus. And so I think that that was definitely a responsible decision. I know you say
Right.
you're still in the thick of it, you're still in the midst of it. Has your doctor
Hmm.
given you any indicator, like, or how often you're going to have to be tested until you
Hmm.
can get, like, how does that work? Are they gonna, because we don't know how long this could last. It
Yeah.
lasts a couple of weeks, a month, you don't know.
Yeah.
So have they given you any indicator of how long and how often you need to get tested to see if you're on the other side of this thing?
So the thing is, I think doctors are just winging it right now. Nobody really knows like what's going on. Like, I keep hearing, because like I actually went to two different doctors. I went to a pulmonologist and I went to my primary care provider, and
Mm-hmm.
both of them really don't have answers as to why I'm still testing positive after so long. Because if you look at the stats on the CDC, like, most people recover from it after 2 weeks. Like, I kept reading articles about how people are not it's not normal to test positive after 2 weeks because the virus only has a shelf life of 2 weeks, like an incubation period of 2 weeks. So nobody really knows why I'm still testing positive. But as far as like how often I get retested, initially I was getting retested every 2 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
my last test was actually May 18th, and that came back positive. And I guess after so many retests, my doctor was like, let's just wait a month this time. Instead of you coming back, 2 weeks later, let's just do a month. Let's just give it a little bit more time to, potentially get out your system. So I'm not scheduled to get my next retest until next week, maybe early next week or the middle of next week.
Yeah, so I think something you said is the reason why we do this is because I think doctors are literally still trying to figure it out. We thought it
Hmm.
looked one way, but we're finding out that it can look different in different people. Some people don't even have a fever. Some people don't even exhibit
Exactly.
any symptoms. So they're asymptomatic. They don't have any clue. And then now we're discovering it's starting to look a little different in children. So it's
Hmm.
just so much. that they're still learning, like you say, on the fly. That's why we want to tell these stories, because we want people to know it comes in different forms, and we just want them to be
Right.
educated. As we bring the conversation to a close, is there any last thing that you would like to tell our audience, as a piece of
Mhm.
advice, or just leave them with some last nugget of wisdom?
I would just like to say, I understand that it appears that things are going back to normal with everything opening back up, restaurants being open, movie theaters, bowling alleys, all that being open. I understand, it's tempting to go out, but this thing is not over. Like, trust me when I say that, I've been keeping track with the numbers and it's still going up. I don't know where the governor is getting his information from. He said that, his motivation behind opening up the state was because the numbers were plateauing or decreasing, and I didn't see that. So it's still very much alive, it's still very much real, and I just want people to continue to protect themselves. If you must go out, please wear a mask. It's only for a few minutes. I know it's hard to breathe in those things. I hate wearing them because my glasses get foggy whenever I have my mask on with my glasses. So it is frustrating, and it's definitely, an adjustment because this is something new to us. But I feel like this is going to be our new normal until they get things under control. So I really want people to still social distance, wear your mask, because this thing is killing us, like our people, African Americans. Like,
Absolutely.
we're the main race that's dying from this. And so I just want everybody to protect themselves. I also want to speak to my generation. I feel like my generation, we kind of feel like we're invincible.
Mhm.
Initially they were saying, okay, if you're young and you don't have pre-existing conditions, even if you get it, you'll be fine. You'll live. Like, yes, I'm still living, and I'm very thankful for that. And I never had to go to the hospital, and I'm thankful for that as well. But my quality of life is not good right now. Like I said, I can't show affection. I can't go around people without wearing a mask. So, like, my lifestyle has completely changed. So, I wouldn't want anybody else to go through this. So, just hear me when I say it's serious for everyone. It doesn't matter what your age is, what conditions you have. If you have no conditions, you can still contract this thing and it can still affect you. So, but other than that, just stay prayed up, you know, do what you're supposed to do, practice good hygiene, wear your mask, social distance, and you should be fine.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Quintalyn just gave y'all a whole word, so I hope that y'all really adhere to what she just said, as in take this seriously enough. And know it's about your health, it's about your neighbor's health, it's about the community's health overall. And like she said, you need to wear your mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing, and just be responsible, y'all. Take this seriously, no matter what your age is. Make sure you are being responsible, as uncomfortable as that mask may be, wear it. Quintalyn,
Right.
thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you probably aren't feeling your best, but that you are willing to be as transparent as you have been, and just
Hmm.
helping to educate us about the virus and your experience through your journey. Thank you so much for that.
No problem. I was glad to tell my story because I definitely want people to hear it.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you. And fam, we thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Please be safe. Please wear your mask. Please wash your hands. Please practice social distancing. And until next time, we'll see you. Peace.
Bye bye.